The gray sensitive. Theme warning. Violence, gore, horror, suicide, ideation. It's a hole in the ground. Newspaper, leaves, and cardboard. Paracord to the truck behind. Pitfall, the shuffling is sporadic. Moments of silence. Then the stomach growls. The creature shuffles. It's a rabbit. An albino. Comes out like an old magician's hat. No fight. I pull it close to my face. Can feel its breath. Its heart beats quick. It doesn't fight. Why? No broken limbs. No signs of tears. The stomach growls. Look in its eyes. Beady. Red. I sigh. Set it down. Doesn't run. Sniffs the air. Steps around. Timid. Walks back to the pitfall. Flops inside. Shuffles. Stops. I want to laugh, but the forest is quiet. No wind. Once a concrete jungle. Shopping malls, cars, people. Now it belongs to the green. What isn't claimed by the green is claimed by the gray. And the gray is quiet. It squeaks. I pick it up again. Doesn't fight. Set it down. Block the path to the pitfall with boot. It walks around a bit. It's lost. Alone. No instincts to live. Strange. Branch snaps behind me. Big branch. Reach for gun. Black. Flash. Big flash. Bang. Birds fly away. Fluttering wings echo amongst the concrete and trees. Rabbits gone. Slight rustling in the distance. It stops. Too small for bear. Must be bobcat. Agile, quick. There's blood spray on the road. Twisted pattern against overgrowth. I follow it. I am the apex. I am what's left. I am man. Follow for a mile. Blood drippings and shuffled leaves leads to real forest. Dense. No concrete. The gray has touched these trees. Now it rots with life. The coating is amalgamated. All is one, and one is all. The gray spreads slowly. That is its way. Leaves touch where they shouldn't. They grow into each other until two become one, until 100 becomes one, until all is gray. The trail of the beast walks the line between life and fake life, where the earth is still brown, the ground's too dry to give a distinct print. Where the world is gray, the blood loses its color and feeds the machine. The sun is setting. The gray will cede to the earth. Still, it grows. The whole of it, the lot of it, pushing over the trail, seeping into the earth, must follow the color until there is none left. Dusk has set. When the green is quiet, the gray may speak. The gray's owls hoot their calls, distorted cries echoing amongst itself. Mockery. They call to me from the canopy. Hoot, where do you go? I don't answer the gray. It's all lies. Hoot! Why do you go? I don't answer. Derek. More human this time. My love, don't stop. We miss you. I stop and look into the gray. It glows at night, coding stolen from fireflies. It hums and haws with energy. Colors, shifting blue, green, orange, where it wills. The gray squelches against itself, tearing, ripping, like the sound of flesh in the mouth of a bear. Trees cracking under pressure that builds until it snaps. It tears itself to breed. A silhouette stands deep in the gray. It hides behind a tree. Gnawed silver fingers stretched around the bark of more gray. Derek, far more human than before, I pull out the gun. Is it you? Female. Familiar. I pull back the hammer. Derek, please. I put the barrel to my temple. The gray recoils. Low. Guttural hiss. Vibrating through the silver mass. The apparition melts into itself, seeping back into the gray like water into sand. I sigh, put down the gun, pull out the torch, follow the trail, ignore the memories. The trail remains. The blood falls more into the green. If it's a cat, it's big. It's eaten well. There's a river nearby. Fresh water. Lips are dry. Cracked. Hands, too. The trail leads to the sound of water. Moonlight sparkles through the canopy of leaves. The beast has taken me to a pond. Frogs hop amongst lily pads. Ribbit. Stomach growls. Make a gig out of branches and twine. Spear 3. Cut back of necks. Peel off skin. Use knife to cut through feet and hips. Legs are good. Moonlight is good. Dump in salt water. Start a fire. Burn the impurities. Feast beneath the stars. The tune of water is nice. It does not squelch. It does not cry. It simply flows. Night has seeped in. The beast will tire. Now is the time. Pack up supplies. Throw discarded frog bits to where the gray will come. Let it feast on the dead instead. Cross the river. Find trail. Blood patterns are more frequent. Not far. Put torch on shoulder. Count bullets. 4. Holster gun with strap loose. Draw spear. Listen. Leaves, wind, wine. The wine is not a cat. Draw nearer to animal. Blood pools in thick puddles. Wine is frequent. The beast is hurt enough to not be alarmed by the light. Keep it on. Something is tearing flesh. Sounds like the gray, but raw. It's chewing. Hide in bush. Close to the beast. Very close. The beast is not alarmed. Not by the light. Not by footsteps. Not by me. I face the beast beneath the light of my torch. The beast is not a cat. It's a dog, Great Dane, mouth stained with blood. Bullet hit right flank, bleeding under the moon. Alive. Barely. The squelching sound continues. Not the dog. Shine light towards it. Its eyes catch the light, but it does not move. It holds the remains of the white rabbit in its dark and thin fingers. Blood shines off the skin around the mouth, takes the rabbit, and bites into the guts raw. Its beady eyes look at me. Silent intrigue. I kneel to its level. It watches me without concern or care. A child. A human child. I rush to him. The dog growls and stands on its wounded leg. I raise my hands and cede. The dog rests and resumes its whines, not taking its eyes off me. There is no sign of the gray on the child. There is no sign of gray on the dog. Both are younger than the gray. Take off rucksack. Gather firewood. Build small fire. Child watches in awe. Dog is unbothered. Offer small berries to child. It smiles and takes them with bloodied hands. The child eats until it cannot and falls asleep. The dog rests where it lay. I take the rabbit and cut it to pieces. Cooking what's left, eating little, and saving the rest, I curl next to the fire and let sleep take me. The dog's barks startle me awake. Frequent yaps at something behind me. The child has taken my spear and points it behind me. The sun is overhead. I have slept too long. Twist in place. The gray surrounds me. Silver apparitions stand above, shaped like humans, features like humans, but only gray. The dog barks more frequently. The child is near to tears, screaming. The gray has claimed my leg. Its crawl is slow. I thrust my leg free from the mold, but the gray has seeped into my skin. The child screams again, jabbing at the apparitions. It connects with one, but the apparition holds the spear tightly and pulls the child in. Don't think. Jump at apparition. Push child away. Apparition swallows me, wrapping my skin. Reach for gun. Bring to head. Bang. Nothing. Still here. Missed. Apparition pulls hand down. Kicks gun to the green to the child. The child stares at me. Nod to gun. Do it. First words I have uttered in years. Do it. The gray brings me to my knees. Apparitions all around, touching, feeling, taking me. The mold crawls slow, points of contact multiplying. Do it! The child picks up the gun and points it at me. Relief. I don't fight anymore, but the child does. Its hands tremble. The child's eyes are teary. It has not known me. Still, it weeps. I smile. It's okay. It's okay, little one. Let it happen. Bang! High-speed train. Congressman David Chen found himself where he never guessed he'd be. The dining car on the express, a high-speed train humming through the Hungarian countryside, a patchwork of browns and gray dirty snow flashed by. Abandoned Soviet-era factories passed surreal in skeletal frames, riddled with broken windows and crumbling walls. David's head pounded. Nausea caused him to sweat. He hated trains, but loved his wife, and the Prague conference was over. Just one more meeting, and then he and his wife could take a river cruise out of Budapest. Studying the wine list across from David sat Marcus Blackwood. When the waiter came, he ordered a 2016 Tokaji. The waiter paused and bit his lower lip, avoiding Blackwood's eyes. "We only have a 2018. Your boss promised the 2016, Blackwood said, stroking his precisely trimmed stubble. "I suggest you find it, or else." David noted his old friend, the Blackwood he'd grown up with, the new director of Aid Alliance, had mastered making threats. "Trains have a finite quality," Blackwood mused as they waited for the wine. "Once you're on them, you can't get off." David sipped water from a crystal glass. "But you can change the destination. That depends on who's controlling the switches," Blackwood said. "By the way, how's your Sarah? She starts Columbia in the fall. Is that right? The tuition must be a killer." His stomach rolled over. How did Blackwood know about the Columbia acceptance letter? "She's fine. Elizabeth and I are quite proud of her. I saw you with Elizabeth at the Prague conference. Vacation? Yes. Doubling up the conference with time in Budapest." Blackwood winked. "And a write-off for the entire trip?" Blackwood tossed his right hand. "I was thinking about how we've known each other since the early days. Hell, I was at your wedding. We're warriors, you and I. Into the breach and all that. Well, this warrior is getting tired of the congressional grind. I'm thinking of not running next term. Call it quits." Blackwood laughed, his thick frame tight against his dress shirt. "Say it ain't so. No, I would quit. But there's more I want to do. A few years, maybe. Then on to the speaker circuit. Or maybe a pack." The waiter returned with a 2016. "We're in luck, Mr. Blackwood." He opened the wine, offered a taste, then served them both. He carefully placed the bottle on the immaculate white tablecloth. "About your upcoming committee vote," Blackwood said. "Aid distribution, of course, is of paramount importance. But with our audit showing only 30 cents on the dollar reaching recipients, there's some pushback we're fighting against." "I've reviewed the proposal," David said. $8 billion might take some time to get through committee. Blackwood adjusted his broad shoulders and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to think about this from the 30,000-foot view," he said. "After all, think of the optics. We're supporting democracy, fighting corruption, and aiding fledgling governments who need the world's help." The waiter refilled their wine glasses while the two men looked on. When he left, Blackwood gulped his wine, leaned into the table, and reached out to adjust David's tie. Our organization believes there's a benefit to a network of partners. We need expertise to walk us through a complex banking system, the regulatory environment. Would you consider getting involved? A non-profit, hip deep in money laundering, David thought. Excessive compensation, shell companies. A big plunge for a guy who doesn't fudge on taxes. Never has. Never will. I'm a congressman. I can't touch this. You know that, David said. No. Your role would be legitimate, I assure you, Blackwood said. That's what the advisory board is all about. Insurance for, he chuckled, derailments. We want you as a board member after your term ends. It's just, well, in the meantime, we'd like your advice. As a friend. The dulled rush of an opposing train sped by their window. Blackwood steepled his hands in front of him. How's Elizabeth's gallery, by the way? Her art might be worth more once she's passed. Of course, that could be decades away. We certainly don't want any harm to come to her, do we? Blackwood looked down and cut another piece of his steak. David's fork froze on the way to his mouth. He felt anger ripping his insides at the veiled threat against his wife. After slowly setting his fork down, he picked up his wine glass. His hand shook as he gripped the glass, but he gripped harder, and then harder still. The train entered a tunnel. David lost his concentration, diverted by the sudden brightness of the two men's reflection in the window. He stared at the image, but the man in the reflection who looked like him didn't stare back, but shattered the glass with his hand. David stared, transfixed. His reflection picked up a shard with his bleeding hand and wrapped the pointed glass with his cloth napkin. He then reached across the table and slashed Blackwood's throat. Blood splattered on the table as the reflection of Blackwood collapsed. The reflection blanked out as the train shot from the tunnel exit, the horn howling into the twilight. David stared at the wine glass in his hand. Blackwood was no longer across from him. David stumbled from the dining car. He lurched down the corridor to his sleeper cabin, fell into Elizabeth as she opened the door, reeled to the water closet, and retched in the toilet. "David, what happened?" Elizabeth called through the door. "My God!" The train approached the outskirts of the city. High rises ahead, pinned to the night sky. The lights in the windows staring down. Soon the train squealed into the station. Elizabeth gripped her husband's arm as they walked to the taxi stand, her eyes riveted on his face. "David? Darling? Are you okay? What happened?" "It's nothing," he said. She held him closer. "Are you feeling better? Talk to me. Did you forget anything?" David steadied himself against his wife. "No, I haven't left anything." As they walked to the taxi stand, he felt in his gut that Blackwood was gone. He realized he'd left him on the train. Some things you can never explain. he thought. But then he felt oddly privileged. He smiled, and even the grime of Budapest tasted a little cleaner. Fate, or science, or the devil himself had stepped in. But not God, he thought. No, this wasn't God. It was another presence who didn't like the alliance, weighing the direction of his daughter's future, his wife's safety, or the price for his looking the other way. "Your hand's bleeding," Elizabeth said. "It looks like a piece of glass behind the cerulean door." Summer. Vlog. Part 1. Uploaded June 20th, 2024. Video transcript. Hey, guys. Cassie here. Today is the first day of my songwriting retreat. I've just arrived at the cabin and absolutely love it. I'm so excited to bring you along on this summer journey with me. This cabin is exactly what I need. A quiet little place to write some new songs and finally finish the ones I started during our tour. And you guys, just look at this place. There's a forest, there's a lake, and there's literally nobody else for miles. Well, maybe more like a few hundred meters, but still. And here's the cabin. Doesn't it look cozy? I mean, sure, on the outside, it's a bit worn down. The landlord said he just inherited it and hasn't had enough time to fix it up. But guys, the main treat is inside. Let me show you, okay? Here we are. I love this rustic wood paneling and the floors. And, oh my God, these windows, they're huge. So much light. I didn't expect a cabin this far north to have such big windows. But I guess the original owners mostly used it in the summer. Though there's a really lovely fireplace too. But I have no idea if it still works. And drum roll, please. Here's the star of this humble abode. This old, trusty, upright piano. You guys, I'm so happy I found a cabin with a piano. There's just something special about writing music on a real acoustic instrument. It feels so much better than any electronic keyboard. It's like the older the instrument is, the more stories it has to tell, you know? But I did bring my portable MIDI keyboard, just in case. This piano is probably way out of tune, but I'll try to fix it. I think I'm gonna set up my laptop right here on this coffee table so I can put some mics near the piano and record my songwriting sessions. Now, here's a small kitchen area. There's running water and everything, and I've already stocked the fridge. Gosh, these windows. Can you imagine how nice it's gonna be to make a cup of coffee in the morning and just sit here, looking at the lake? Anyway, let's get on with the tour. Over here, we've got a door to what I'm guessing is a storage room, or maybe a shed? Not sure. But look at this color. What do you call it? Teal? Or cerulean, maybe? We should totally paint our studio back home this color. I really like it. But in any case, it's locked. The landlord said he doesn't even have a key, so I guess we have a little mystery on our hands. Okay, and here's the bedroom. Not much space here, and I can barely stand straight in this corner, but it's so cozy. Kinda like a hobbit hole. I've started unpacking already. Sorry for the mess. Now, let's go check out the lake. Oh my gosh. It smells amazing out here. I wish you guys could smell it through the screen. It's like pine trees, fresh grass, and a cool breeze from the lake. And listen, can you hear the birds? Not sure if the camera mic is picking it up, but I hope you can. I know I'm gonna spend so much time down here, drawing inspiration from nature. Anyway, I'm gonna settle in now, play some piano, well, maybe try tuning it first, and I'll check in with you guys soon. The reception here is kinda spotty, but I'll do my best to post regularly. See you soon. Bye. Summer Vlog Part 2 uploaded June 21st, 2024. Video transcript. Hey guys. So, it's my second day at the cabin. Last night, I stayed up way too late working on a new song, and I guess my brain didn't fully shut off when I finally went to bed. 'Cause I'm pretty sure I dreamed a melody. Isn't it funny how our minds work? Sometimes I hear a song in my sleep, and in my dream, it's the most incredible thing I've ever heard. But when I wake up, it's kinda meh at best. Or worse, it's not even my song at all. Just something I heard before. But every now and then, I do get a real song idea from my dreams. Honestly, even when I'm awake, it feels like songs already exist somewhere out there. You know? Like when I'm really in the flow, inspired, or whatever you call it. It's like the music comes to me, and I just have to write it all down before it slips away. Weird, huh? Other times, it's more like solving a puzzle. I have all these pieces. I just have to figure out where they fit. And when I find the right spot, it just falls into place. Maybe there's a place where all the songs and stories live, and we're here just to write them down. Who knows? Anyway, enough of my rambling. I tuned the piano as best I could. A couple of keys are still slightly off, but I didn't want to push it and risk breaking something. It's good enough for now. All right, I'm gonna go write down some new song. You guys have a good one, and I'll check in with you soon. Bye. Summer Vlog Part 3 uploaded June 23rd, 2024. Video transcript. Okay, guys, this is weird. Remember how I said I dreamed of a melody? Well, now I'm not sure it's just a dream. I've been hearing this melody in my sleep every night, and last night I woke up, but the song didn't stop. I still could hear somebody or something humming it. It was really soft, but it was definitely there. I tried recording it, but my mic didn't pick up anything. just background noise. I swear, I'm not making this up. This song, it's so beautiful, so full of longing, but it gives me goosebumps, and not entirely in a good way. And the weirdest part? It's like it's stuck in a loop. It just ends abruptly and starts over, like it's forgotten how it ends. And now it's stuck in my head. Oh, wait. I'm so stupid. I definitely didn't get enough sleep. Here, let me sing it for you. Then, now you see what I mean, right? It's like it's missing its ending. Anyway, maybe it's just my brain doing weird musician stuff. I'm gonna go explore the woods now and try to clear my head and then focus on my own songs. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you soon. Bye. Summer Vlog Part 4 uploaded June 25th, 2024. Video transcript. Hey guys, sorry for this shaky on-the-go vlog, but I just found out something, and I have to share it with you. So, today, I went into town to get some supplies, and I ended up chatting with this old guy at the shop. When I mentioned I was staying at the lakeside cabin, his whole face changed. Like, he actually looked disturbed. He told me that about 30 years ago, another musician rented the same cabin. He thinks his name was Daniel or David, something like that. And he just vanished. I have to find out more about this missing musician. I'm gonna hit the local library tomorrow and see what I can dig up. Oh, and before I forget, no, I did not distort the audio in the last vlog on purpose. I didn't even realize the part where I sang the melody got corrupted. I tried recording it again later, but when I played it back, all I got was this weird, distorted static. And after the third try, the electricity actually went out. Maybe the song wants me to finish it first. Or maybe it's just so old school that it only wants to exist in analog. Either way, for now, I'll just have to stick to good old pen and paper. All right, I'll keep you posted. Bye. Summer Vlog Part 5 uploaded June 26th, 2024. Video transcript. Hey, guys. I have an update on the missing musician mystery. So, of course, I tried Googling it first, but without a full name, I didn't get very far. But today, I went to the town library, and I actually found an article in a local newspaper from 1994. Here, I made a copy. There's not much information here, but at least it confirms that a musician really did go missing. His name was Daniel Hart, and he disappeared in July 1994. From what I can tell, the police didn't search for him too hard, since he was a touring musician and wasn't from around here. They figured he just moved on. But here's the weird part. The article says that all his belongings were left at the cabin, including his guitar. Now, show me a musician who would willingly leave their instrument behind. I also talked to the librarian. this super stern elderly lady, and she actually remembers Daniel. He came by a few times to research local history and culture. She told me he always seemed to have his head in the clouds, and I think when I was leaving, the lady mumbled something like musician's curse, but I'm not totally sure. Not creepy at all, right? Now, about the melody, I transcribed it into sheet music and have been working on the ending. I've been writing down every option I come up with, but nothing fits yet. But there's something wrong with my notes. I don't think I wrote some of these variations in my notebook. I remember the versions I had in my head, but on the page, they're different. I don't know. Maybe I screwed up and made a bunch of mistakes when I wrote them down. Or maybe I'm just going crazy, like some of you suggested in the comments. It looks like my handwriting, but it's hard to tell with just the do and lines in the notation. And these cadences feel more than just incompatible with the main melody. They feel wrong, almost sinister. Honestly, the fact that I don't remember composing them freaks me out even more than Daniel's connection to the cabin. Summer Vlog, Part 6, uploaded June 28th, 2024. Video transcript. Guys, look. I just noticed this page sticking out from under the locked door. I swear it wasn't there before. Let's see. Oh, wow. It's the song. But, there are a couple more bars added at the end. It looks old. And the handwriting isn't mine. Do you think it's Daniel's? Jeez, how is that even possible? And why did this page suddenly appear now? I don't believe in ghosts, but this feels like too much of a coincidence, right? Also, I'm not just hearing the melody at night anymore. Now, it comes as a faint whistling whenever a draft moves through the room. It gives me chills, though I'm not sure if it's the sound itself or just the cold air. Am I losing my mind? Summer Vlog, Part 7, uploaded June 29th, 2024. Video transcript. Guys, I've made some progress on the melody. I got a couple more bars right. I can feel it, but it's still not finished. It's like it's just on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite get it right. It's louder now. I hear it even outside in the wind, though the farther I get from the cabin, the fainter it becomes. And of course, I can still hear it in my head, since I'm constantly thinking about it. It's the ultimate earworm. There's this urgency in it now. I've got shivers crawling up the back of my neck all the time. I think it wants me to figure it out. And soon. Sorry, I don't have much time to spare. Gotta get back to work. Summer Vlog, Part 8, uploaded June 30th, 2024. Video transcript. Okay, this isn't just cabin weirdness anymore. I ran into town to pick up some groceries and when I came back, this. The whole place was trashed. They tore out a few pages from my manuscript notebook, and there are deep scratches on the locked door, like someone was trying to pry it open. But they didn't take my laptop or camera. The only thing that makes sense is that they were after the song. But why? Luckily, I had Daniel's sheet with me. I know the rational thing would be to pack up and get out of here immediately. But I don't think I can. I need to finish this song. I've always felt like it was important, and now I know it is. I think I'm getting closer to figuring out the right ending. The melody is clearer now, and sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I swear I see it. This pale blue ribbon of light flowing around me. SVN News Report, July 1st, 2024. Forest fire near Songvale Lake. A fast-moving wildfire broke out overnight near Songvale Lake, with fire crews working since early this morning to contain the spread before it reaches nearby homes and hiking trails. Authorities believe the fire may have originated at a lakeside cabin, possibly due to faulty wiring in the aging structure. At this time, there is no confirmed information about potential victims. Evacuation warnings have been issued for several properties along the eastern edge of Songvale Lake, and officials are urging residents to stay alert and be prepared to leave if conditions worsen. SVN News Report, July 2nd, 2024. Missing musician. Last seen near Songvale Lake. Authorities are searching for Cassie Reed, a 29-year-old musician who was last seen in the town of Ridgepoint, just a few miles from Songvale Lake, the day before a fast-moving wildfire broke out in the area. According to local authorities, Reed was reported missing by her manager after she failed to show up for a scheduled video call yesterday. She had been renting a lakeside cabin near the fire's suspected point of origin. Reed was last seen on June 30th at a small grocery store in Ridgepoint. Witnesses say she appeared distracted and was acting strangely. Authorities have not confirmed whether Reed was inside the cabin when the fire started. Officials are urging anyone with information about Cassie's whereabouts to come forward. Meanwhile, her fans have taken to social media, using the hashtag #FindCassie to share updates and express their concern. Summer vlog. I'm alive. Uploaded July 8th, 2024. Video transcript. Hey guys, Cassie here. I know many of you have been worried, but I'm okay. I had to go dark for a while. Someone, or something, set fire to the cabin, and they still might be after me. And the melody. I know some of you already thought I was crazy. Now, you'll be sure of it. But hear me out. I believe the song saved me. I found the right ending. I know the whole song now. It happened just a couple of hours before the fire. The moment I played the melody from start to finish, I heard a creak. The cerulean door opened. Inside, there was a room filled with old instruments, flutes, violins, I think I even saw Daniel's guitar. And there were cassette tapes, too. There were many more musicians before me or Daniel. I don't know what happened to them, but many of them tried to write this same song. I found heaps of sheet music in that storage room, all in different handwriting. Some pieces were definitely the same song, with variations of the last part, though not many were finished. What's interesting is that some of them felt right to me, even though they were different from my version. Maybe the ending isn't just about fitting the song. Maybe it's about reflecting the person writing it. And there were other songs, completely different ones, each with variations of their own. I don't know what that means yet, but I believe this song holds some kind of benevolent power. A protection spell, maybe. Something that keeps a darkness at bay. A darkness that's been trying to destroy the song and anyone who tries to finish it. I think all those creepy feelings I had were coming not from the song itself, but from that darkness trying to scare me away. And when I finally finished the song, it got really, really mad. I must have dozed off while going through all that sheet music. But I woke up to the melody whistling under the eaves. It was so loud and piercing, like a siren. That's when I smelled smoke. The cabin was on fire. I grabbed as many pages of music as I could reach and ran to the living room to get my laptop. But everything was already on fire. I couldn't get to the door. Luckily, those huge windows made a great escape point, and then I just ran. Now I'm safe, and the song is too. I can record it now. I'm not sure if it's because it's complete or because that dark power doesn't stand in the way anymore. But I still have so many questions. I have so much research to do to fully understand what it all means. So I'm going to disappear again for a while. But I will leave this song with you. It's out there now, everywhere you can listen to music. And I think it's important that as many people as possible hear it, sing it, remember it. This song matters, and I'm going to find out why. Wish me luck. Rakotsbrücke, the Devil's Bridge. Rakotsbrücke, the Devil's Bridge. Whispers of mystery had long shrouded Rakotsbrücke, the legendary Devil's Bridge in Kromlau, Germany. Stories had swirled about its eerie perfection for generations, how its reflection in the still waters formed a flawless circle. Some believed it was merely an optical illusion. Others claimed it was something more, a portal to the unknown. Hans and Gerda Schmidt had grown up in the shadow of these legends. Their childhoods were filled with hushed tales passed down through the years, some dating back over a century. But the most chilling story was always the same. At certain times of the year, the bridge's reflection wasn't just a trick of the light. It was a gateway, and those who crossed it at the wrong moment were never seen again. Most dismissed such stories as mere folklore, but Hans and Gerda couldn't ignore the unsettling number of disappearances. Determined to separate fact from fiction, they spent months scouring old newspaper archives, compiling every recorded vanishing link to Rakotsbrücke. With each faded article, each cryptic account, a pattern emerged. If their calculations were correct, the next opening of the gateway was near. And this time, they would be there to witness it. Their research had uncovered a chilling pattern. The phenomenon occurred only once in winter, but was far more frequent during unseasonably warm periods in the warmer months. This week, temperatures were set to spike well above normal, and Hans and Gerda were convinced that the anomaly was bound to happen again. Armed with sophisticated audio and video equipment, Hans, Gerda, and several close friends set up camp near the bridge early Monday morning. Their goal was simple: capture undeniable proof of the anomaly. They weren't the first to try, of course, but they were determined to be the first to succeed. Each member of the group would take turns operating the equipment, ensuring the bridge was never left unwatched. Gerda was first. Luck would have to be on her side. She steadied the camera, framing the sublimely unsettling structure as it loomed over the river, its reflection dissolving into the rising morning mist. Days passed as the majestic bridge stood in solemn silence. Time was running out. By Thursday, tension had given way to celebration. The group partied, drank, and danced near the eerie silhouette of Rakotsbrücke, their initial excitement fading into the rhythm of the night. Laughter echoed through the trees, until a sudden burst of blinding white light shattered the darkness. A collective gasp cut through the air. Hans, Gerda, and the others sprinted toward the equipment, hearts pounding. Julio, the group's cameraman for that night, stood motionless, his camera locked onto the event. Then he sighed and shook his head. False alarm. They followed his gaze to the source. A biker gang rolling through the woods, their headlights gleaming off the water, engines rumbling like distant thunder. It was an illusion. The spacing of their bikes on the bridge and the reflection of their lights momentarily brought the bridge alive. From a distance, the bridge looked like a space portal had formed. Are you recording this? Gerda asked Julio. Never stopped. At least we can add it to the footage of our trip when we edit the video. The air deflated from their lungs. Shoulders slumped. Heads hung low. Disappointment settled over the camp like a heavy fog. By Sunday, hope had dried up completely. They packed some of their things, one by one, muttering the same defeated refrain. We'll try again next year. Ever the optimist, Gerda climbed onto a picnic table, raising her beer in defiance. I want to thank all of you for coming to witness what never was, she announced, her voice carrying over the quiet camp. But tonight, we're forgetting about that damn gateway. Tonight, we party like it never existed. A roar of approval followed, and soon the music and laughter returned. None of them noticed the waters beneath Rakotsbrücke begin to shimmer. None of them saw the perfect gaseous cloud take shape inside the circle once more. Even Julio, who found himself once again on camera duty, did not notice the bridge coming alive. It was midnight, and the others were still lost in their revelry at the campsite. None of them was there to witness what was unfolding. He might have caught it sooner, if not for Fräulein Gretchen. She had been eyeing him since they passed his group while hiking on Monday. Now, as the others partied, she had cozied beside him, drawn to the quiet observer behind the camera. Since he did not drink, he had no problem operating the equipment, though tonight his attention was divided. That night, Julio had his blanket on the ground. Fräulein Gretchen and he were making out when he caught a glimmer of light out of the corner of his eye. Standing up immediately, he checked to see if the camera and audio were working. Gretchen was still playfully fondling his ear with her lips. "Stop. This is important. Can't you see what's happening?" he said to her with a stern but playful voice. "Look at it. It's getting brighter and brighter. Come on, let's get closer." The luminous gateway had a compelling allure, almost trance-like, and it kept tugging at their interest. At the river's edge, there was a small rowboat. They went down to the water, determined to get a closer look. Meanwhile, the light got bright enough to grab the attention of the others partying at the campsite. Hans was the first to notice the light. "Look, guys, the forest is beginning to light up. Must be responding to our partying," he said playfully. "No, I think it's the bridge," Gerda said as she took off, running toward Julio's location. The rest of the gang took off after her. There was no sign of Julio near the video equipment, and the forest glow was getting brighter and brighter. Gerda turned toward the bridge, her thoughts conflicting. She wanted her full attention to find Julio and not care about the bridge, yet the bridge was mesmerizing. Her heart was racing as the ominous light loomed large. "Julio! Julio!" the rest of the group yelled. The yells from her friends temporarily knocked her back to reality. She saw a small rowboat drift through the fog on the far side of the river. Her stomach clenched. That same boat was near them when they first set up the equipment on Monday, and it hadn't moved until now. "Guys, get over here!" Gerda's voice cut through the tense air. She was standing near the equipment. As they gathered around, she maneuvered the camera so everyone could see it. The camera began playback with the motorcycles, and they watched as the humming of the bikes slowly transformed the water. "Look at the water, guys. It appears to be vibrating. Would the sound waves have that big of an effect on the water?" Hans asked. "It must have," she replied as she zoomed in on the water. "When I go back and view the water, it is always completely calm. Something had to stir it. Gerda forwarded the camera to the moment the bridge came alive, and what they saw blew their minds. As they began watching, they heard a female voice. Stunned, Gerda rewound the tape, and sure enough, there was a flirtatious voice in the background. Maybe Julio is at the nearest hotel? A voice in the background whispered, drawing quiet snickers from the group. Quiet! Gerda snapped as they continued watching the video. Then they saw it. The gateway. Look at the bridge! My God, it's real! There's Julio and the girl. Hans pointed. They watched as the two made their way down the steep slope. Julio jumped in the boat first and turned to help Gretchen aboard. Freeing themselves from the riverbed, he slowly rowed toward the ominous, bright light, as if he were in a trance. Gretchen sat in front of him, leaning back on his chest, mesmerized by the gaseous light. They were approximately 30 yards from the gateway, and the recording stopped. What happened? Hans asked. I don't know, Gerda replied. No, this can't be happening, she shouted. She rewound the tape for a few seconds and played it back, but the same ending showed each time they watched. Scheisse, Gerda exclaimed. What do we do now? We have 2 people missing, and the tape shows us something, only up to the point where we think they have disappeared. What are we going to tell people? We tell the truth, Gerda. This is why we came here, to find the truth. Hans added, but we don't have the truth. Only partial truths that add to the folklore. This tape will open up more questions than answers, and we will at the tail end of it, searching for more clues. Lynn, Gerda's best friend from London, walked over to her, put her hands on her shoulder, and turned her around so she could cry. Once Gerda's head hit her shoulder, she began to sob uncontrollably. Lynn knew the effect the events had on her. All the time and energy she put into this led to nothing but more questions. She also knew that deep down inside, Gerda wanted to see the gateway in action, even if it was at the cost of her friend's life, which made her feel even worse. Lynn lifted her head. Hey, don't worry. You do have something far more than you ever had. We all know what happened here. Most of it is on tape. I say we immediately make a copy of this tape, take it to the police, and let them investigate their copy. And we have concrete evidence to examine on our own. Next time we are here, we will be much better off than before. Lynn's right, Gerda. We now know a lot more than we ever did. We know the vibrations from the bikes started the gateway. We know that we can't stare at it because of its trance-like powers. And we know the best time to be here and get another shot. Hans added. Yes, that's right, Gerda. The others chimed in. 1 year to the day, the crew set up again. In honor of Julio, they set up a makeshift burial plot at the exact location where the camera stood last year. Gerda felt this new location was better. It was on the other side of the lake and had a better view. This time, the crew was on high alert. There was no partying this time. Their campground was just up the hill from the camera, and they could see partial spots of the lake and bridge from their tents. As they were finishing up with their tents, Lynn ran over to Gerda. "Look at those two over there, Gerda." She pointed. "No, that can't be." They took off running over the bridge, yelling, "Julio! Julio!" A young man turned around as they approached, staring at them, confused. "Yes, how do you know my name? Nature or nurture?" Sensitive content, serial killers. Nature or nurture? That is the question. Before today, I thought I knew where I stood on the issue. But now, friends, I am not really sure what to think. To give you context, a few weeks ago, after Mother passed, I was finally able to clean out her bedroom. The medical equipment was, of course, quite pristine, but the smell and debris from her glacial demise was simply overwhelming, and it took me days to clear paths in the room. I found the letters in her closet, even now. It takes me a moment to adjust myself to the mental impact of those pages and pages of her precise Palmer script, describing in the most flowery of language a lifetime of barely requited love. The only mention of me in any of the letters was it, as in, I can get rid of it. My cold, sterile, demanding mother spent decades writing the most passionate and absolutely painful to read, lurid letters to her one-time lover who never once responded. The wrinkled envelopes I found in an old Avon perfume box, each bearing a scarlet ink, "Return to sender," returned from the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it just preyed on my mind, and I could not get the thoughts out of my head until I took action. Perhaps you may relate to this, perhaps not. So, friends, I eventually found myself in somewhat of a fugue state, an hour into the 2-hour drive up north from Dallas on 75 to US 69, which leads to Penitentiary Street, and then to the Big Mac, a maximum security prison once known for its annual prisoner rodeo, now infamous for its terrible conditions, riots, and death row prisoners, one of whom could be my father. To visit anyone at the Big Mac takes some time. Visiting someone like Louis Landry Reese takes time, and one's absolute forbearance for the most intimately probing of questions and fingers. It wouldn't surprise me if you hadn't heard of Louis Landry Reese and his swath of known and unknown rapes, kidnappings, and killings. But you will be able to find all you want with a few searches. Maybe you know exactly who he is. Driving under the peeling, white-arched grille Oklahoma State Penitentiary sign, buttressed by decaying, similarly painted white bricks, pillars. I pulled into one of the few designated parking spots for Big Mac visitors. I turned off the Volvo's engine and sat for a moment, perhaps a bit longer than a moment, with my mind ticking to different thoughts about how maybe today I would finally learn who my father really was, about how Mother would never talk about him, about how she would punish me when I kept asking and asking, and about how Brandy, my old receptionist, would tease me about Volvos being only for short-haired women who shopped at Home Depot. After a bit, the rising sun. Visitors to the Big Mac must arrive very early. Warmed up the air in the car to the point my face began prickling with sweat, and I was brought back from my reminiscing. I opened the door, swung my legs out, and made my way to enter the prison. As I mentioned, the passage from our daily world to that of people such as Louis Landry Reese is rife with probing exams, delays, and grunting guards who entertain themselves with snickering under the breath asides in the Shawshankian depths of the Big Mac. The black and blue rayon bulk that was my escorting guard halted at metal door exactly like the dozen we had already passed. He turned back toward me and asked without much concern, "Are you sure?" It is true, friends. I am not a physically intimidating person. Not tall, not wide, not much hair, nor chin. With my decidedly pointed nose and very small teeth, Mother thought it the height of ironic hilarity that I chose the dental profession. A squealing mouse is what she called me, although, to be fair, I learned at a very young age that squealing, no matter how much pain or discomfort, only prolonged such experiences. So squealing is something I have not done in a very long time. I stood straight and focused on how I was a respected professional, how I would be walking out of this dank hellhole of sweating brick and would never ever return, while Louis Landry Reese would only leave feet first. How I would finally find out the truth. "Open the door," I whispered. Greasy tendrils of hair leaked from his scalp, down his shiny face, onto pale, meaty forearms, creating a tangled and ripped curtain through which I could see a silver blue eye cutting from me to the closing door of the room and back to me. As the door shut, he lifted his head up, and I was absolutely shocked to see his sunken and caved face with a navel of puckered mouth. Louis Landry Reese had no teeth, literally. Then I heard the strangest sound, like a dog choking and barking at the same time. It was me, laughing hysterically. Louis Landry Reese did not appreciate my levity. Friends, not at all. He tried to stand, but the chains around his wrist went through a steel loop, bolted to the table, kept him stooped over as he shouted at me. The harsh ratcheting sound of the chains sawing back and forth through the loop assaulted my ears almost as much as his gummy-mouthed curses. The whole episode lasted only a few moments before a phalanx of guards rushed into the room, with one picking me physically up and setting me outside. To be frank, I do not really remember much too clearly from that point. I numbly followed the uniform in front of me and fuzzily collected my belongings before staggering into the Oklahoma sun. I made my way to the Volvo and began the drive back to Dallas. The shrieked words of my father still ricocheting between my ears, and he was indeed my father. One look at his face and those colorless, watery blue eyes that were identical to my own left no doubt, at least to me. I think Lewis Landry Reese thought so too, even though he screamed the most terrible things about Mother and how I was just a dentist and not like the others, which is why I was so stunned and really driving on remote control until I got back to Dallas and pulled off Harry Hines into my driveway. The implications of Lewis Landry Reese knowing my occupation meant he knew of me. But what did he know about me? I was thinking this over as I went to the basement to check on Brandy. She had finally stopped trying to pull her wrists from the restraints, but it seemed she had really stopped doing much of anything. Even when I clicked the pliers together, she barely trembled. That was disappointing. But since Brandy was down to her last 3 teeth, 16, 24, and 41, it was probably time to discharge her and find my next patient. I tell you all this, friends, because contrary to the rantings of Lewis Landry Reese, I am not just a dentist. I am the dentist. And Lewis Landry Reese also said the others. So, I am posting my story on this dark website as a message in the bottle to see if maybe I have family, others like me, to ask, what do you think, nature or nurture? To the person who buys my house. Months ago, I uprooted my entire life and moved across the country with very little plan. My wife left me out of the blue. With no tether, I cashed out my 401k and threw caution to the wind. I drove until I saw snow before deciding to try out the small town life. After nailing down a full-time job and growing tired of life in the town's only hotel, I reached out to a realtor and asked her to show me the house that's been on the market the longest. A fixer-upper was just what I needed. The realtor didn't have much information on the home outside of the basics, but I was sold as soon as I saw it. 3 stories, isolated deep in the woods. What more could a man looking to start over with a project ask for? After closing, I was given a fill folder containing all the important information. With all the standard documents was a handwritten letter from the previous homeowner. The contents of the letter have me questioning if I made the right choice, but I've never been one to turn down a challenge. I have typed the contents of the letter below. To the person who buys my house, congratulations on the purchase of your new home. Or perhaps, should I say, your welcome for your new home. I can only imagine what type of person you may be. A first-time home buyer? A newlywed couple just starting out? A growing family looking for more space? A retiree longing to be away from the hustle and bustle of the city? Or even just an investor looking for rental properties? The possibilities are endless, but no less exciting. Just as exciting as when my late husband and I first purchased the property so many years ago. The tree covering so far off the main road made such a serene setting. We just couldn't picture ourselves living anywhere else. However, all things must come to an end. Such is life. I'm not as young as I once was. My children worried for me out here all alone. Or so they say. My oldest daughter decided the property was too much for me to care for on my own anymore, and encouraged me to move to the old folks' home in the next town. As loath as I was to leave the home we spent such wonderful years in, I could no longer argue with her. The upkeep was getting to be a little much for these old bones. I agreed on one condition: that the home not be put up for sale until my death. So, if you are receiving this letter, I have shuffled off this mortal coil. That also means that the house has most likely sat vacant for some time. In that case, there are a few matters of housekeeping you should be aware of. As you may have noticed when you viewed the property, the house is quite the old gal. Her 3 stories stand tall and formidable in the dense forest surrounding it. Though the trees tower over her, she will not be cowed. The roof has held up better than we ever expected with so many trees around. It was replaced in 2018, another urging of my oldest daughter, though it had only a few cosmetic issues at the time. The trees closest to the home are sturdy and hardly ever dare to drop their branches directly on the roof. By the time you move in, it may be time for a fresh coat of paint, though I found the house does prefer to be a light blue with white trim. She likes to stand out amongst the darkness of the forest. I'll never forget the way the old gal gleamed at Christmas time, with string lights shining bright enough to light up the snow all around. Oh, I do hope you have the most wondrous Christmases there. Anyway, I've gotten off track. Yes, the house will require a new coat of paint, and I'm sure you will decorate the inside as you see fit. Before you start to move too much around, be aware that some of the items in the house have been strategically placed. For you to fully understand what a treasure you have just purchased, I feel it is pertinent for me to tell you a little story. My Reginald and I purchased the home fully furnished before any of our children were brought into this world. The first year we lived there was pure bliss. Young and in love, we dedicated almost all of our time to each other. My husband fondly referred to this time as our honeymoon phase. One of our favorite activities was exploring the vast property surrounding us. When the weather did not permit roaming, we explored the home itself, though from the outside it appears as any manor in the woods would. Inside is much to be discovered. During that first year, we enjoyed the convenience of it being fully furnished and move-in ready. But over time, I yearned to decorate, to make the space my own. Reginald, ever the obedient husband, humored me. We started by taking down every painting that hung on the walls, deciding which to keep, which to sell away, and which to simply move to a different area. That is when the first odd discovery was made. Behind a great many of the paintings, there were holes, right in the plaster walls. Some appeared to be methodically cut in perfect squares. Others, as though a fist was punched straight through it. We, of course, decided that those would eventually be covered back up. I piled the painting up in the drawing room and set about cleaning the walls. By the end of the day, I had yet to decide on what exactly to do with them. So I let them lie and went to bed. In the morning, however, they were all hung perfectly back in their spots, as if all my work had never happened. For days, I assumed Reginald had done it, and he assumed I had. We ultimately didn't speak of it until it was too late, when my Reginald started back to work as supervisor of the factory in town. I resumed my endeavor to make the home feel like it was mine. I hated the big rugs scattered all around the place. I've always preferred a nice hardwood floor. No need for carpets that hold all the dirt and hair that's dragged in. The furniture was easy enough to move out of my way, and the rugs all rolled up nicely. I was mighty proud of my hard work until I got a good look at the wood. Large, dark, discolored splotches marred what should have been beautiful hardwood hiding under those ghastly rugs, which I'm sure you've seen. Unfortunately, much like the paintings, the rugs remained. I'd go into more detail, but some of the full truths have been lost to time. But I will tell you, be careful what you look behind or under. Though the house allowed me to dust and paint and add decor as my heart desired, it did not allow me to leave any of its secret spots uncovered. Behind dressers, cabinets, doors, paintings, mirrors, and under couches, chairs, and beds, the house hides. After the first year, I gave up trying to rearrange and became content with adding a few of my own touches here and there. I think that once the house realized I'd stopped trying to change it so much, it settled down. For a while at least, we entered a time of peace again. But the monotony of loneliness began to get to me. Thankfully, we soon welcomed our oldest daughter. As soon as she arrived, the house awoke with laughter and joy. All hours of the night, she would giggle, and the house seemed to echo with it, those echoes long lingering even after she fell asleep. As we welcomed more children, it seemed that no matter how much we tied, the house remained scattered with toys. It was as if I'd turn my back and they'd all jump right off the shelf and resume their places on the floor. The never-ending chore of putting away made me weary to my bones. In a stroke of wisdom, my Reginald decided one summer to send the children to my mother's for a week. She lived on the coast, never one for the colder air where we chose to live. We didn't see her often, and the children did love her so. Off they went without a complaint, leaving my love and I alone for the first time in over a decade. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. That first night, it was as if we were newlyweds again. But I won't traumatize you with any of that. We felt so young again, only waking when the sun finally shone through our bedroom window, with no rush to feed the masses. When we finally emerged from our bed a little after noon, we walked into an unexpected scene. Every toy, book, pen, shoe, and piece of sports equipment that belonged to the children had been strewn about the first floor in the most uncivilized manner. There was no question that the house had been perfectly clean the night before. Our first thought was that we'd been burgled, that someone had broken in, thinking we'd all left for the coast. The only problem is, we told no one the children were leaving, and we had no neighbors to have noticed their departure. Regardless, we checked for signs of forced entry on all the doors and windows. Finding nothing, we were forced to believe it was whatever force we had once felt in our home, agitated with us once more. As you've probably ascertained, the house is very particular. We had come to accept not being able to move the furniture or pictures, but were only just realizing that the house did not like many of the new things we'd brought in either. How many times had I picked certain toys up off the floor, only to find them there again in the morning? How many times had I unfairly blamed the children for messes they claimed they knew nothing about? That morning, we saw the truth of the matter, and I knew something had to change. The children didn't deserve my anger or anxiety. They were not to blame. When they returned, I was sure to tell them as much. But before then, we had to find a way to coexist again with the forces in the house. What should have been a week of relaxation and reconnecting became a week of trial and error. On the first day, we tidied the house, putting everything back where we thought everything should go. Each room made perfect. Then we waited for the first item to fall out of place. As if the house was testing us, it took hours for anything to happen that first day. Then it started, slowly at first, giving us time to notice the items that were out of place, time to correct. It seemed to go in order of the things that bothered it the most, or maybe just the longest. The first toy to go was a set of bells we'd gotten when our oldest was small. The set was a popular toy amongst all our babies. With our youngest being nearly 8 at the time, these bells hadn't truly rung joyously through the house in years, yet they always made their way off the shelf onto the rug. Our family's peace was more important than any sentimentality, or at least that's what my husband and I agreed. And into the bin they went. Quickly, we noticed patterns. Toys that made too much noise. Shoes that left scuffs on the floor. Sports equipment that may or may not have been involved in a few broken windows and busted light bulbs. Books that sat too heavy on the overburdened bookshelves. Room by room we went, removing any and all items the house found to be offensive. It was by no means an easy undertaking. So many items had many more years of use left in them. But knowing what I knew, I could no longer sacrifice my sanity for a few boxes full of possessions. When the last box of offending items left the property, it was as if the house itself took a deep, calming breath. I hadn't quite realized just how stressed I'd been feeling until I didn't feel it anymore. Weight I'd grown accustomed to bearing eased off my shoulders. The air was lighter, the lights were brighter, and the house even seemed to smell better. Not that there was a noticeable bad smell before. Everything just felt better. That night, Reginald and I slept deeply for the first time in years, waking refreshed and ready for anything. I was ready for my children to come home. This week had been the longest we'd been apart since the youngest was born. I'd spent 2 weeks in the hospital that time, but that's neither here nor there. We had 2 more days before my mother would return them to us, sun-kissed and spoiled rotten in the best way. In those 2 days, I made time to sit quietly and listen to the house the way I used to when it was just Reginald and myself. Familiar creaks and groans greeted my ears. My senses were filled with the house. The smell of wood, water, earth, detergents, fabric, food, all seemed to swirl around me. For a long while, it was all just the normal feelings of home, of any home. Every house I'd ever lived in had the same smells and sounds. I assume every house in the whole world has the same base set of smells, sounds, and lights. I knew there was something past that, though, here. So I waited. A few months back, I'd read a book on meditation, hoping to help lift some of the stress I'd been buried under. While I waited, I took a few quests from my readings. I methodically relaxed each muscle, starting at my toes and working my way to my head. I felt each breath as it traveled in and out of my lungs. I tried to tune my ears inward to listen to the beating of my heart, attempting to hear the blood rushing through my veins. That's when I finally heard the breathing. It wasn't my own. It was offbeat of mine. Reginald wasn't home. We had no pets, but the slow, deep, steady breaths were just a whisper in my ear. I focused with all my might on the sound, hoping to pinpoint the direction it was coming from. Realization dawned on me. I was all around me, as if I was inside a lung. Then, a heartbeat, slower than my own, reverberated around me. Slowly, I opened my eyes. What I saw changed everything. Ever so lightly, the walls billowed in and out. Ever so slightly, the chandelier above my head rhythmically bobbed, as if contracting, thrumming. Everything in the central family room moved in a steady beat. How many days had we spent in this room? The majority of our lives circulated in this room, where we were most often all together as a family, the way a family room should be used. We often joked that this room was the heart of the house, because there was always so much love here. We were not wrong. This room truly holds the heart of the home. You may think I'm crazy, but I am telling you, here and now, the house is alive. It is not haunted. There are no goblins or ghouls. The house itself is a living, breathing being, a being that I have cared for, just as it has cared for me, for more years than I care to count. You see, my daughter never believed. She did not understand. When I finally agreed that I was too old to care for the house on my own, it was because the house told me so. Not her. I was growing too old to care for it. And in turn, it could no longer care for me. It needs someone younger, someone to breathe new life into it again. And if you care for it, it will care for you. When tended to properly, it will multiply your life and give you more than you can ever imagine. I do hope Carmen found the right person to take on the challenge. I pray the house does not miss us too terribly much. If you follow the rules, then it should grow to love you, too, I'm sure. With love, Cynthia. Rule 1. Don't move the furniture. Rule 2. Don't leave any holes uncovered. Rule 3. Don't make changes. Only fix things that break. Rule 4. Don't put anything on the mantle in the bedroom. Rule 5. Never throw balls inside. Rule 6. Never scream at your partner inside. On the grounds is fine. Rule 7. Always walk gently. Rule 8. Always lock the doors. Rule 9. Always listen to the house. Take care of it, and it will take care of you. I have lived in the house for a week now. What I thought to be the ramblings of a crazy old woman who wanted nothing more than to stay with her home have quickly become undeniable truths. On my second night, the house welcomed me in a way only it could have. I'm not sure if this makes me just as crazy as her, but I vowed to care for this home as long as it cares for me. We're off to a great start. Cliffhanger by Lee Kendrick. I had never been to a tropical country before, but Indonesia was my friend's, and I chose a holiday destination after we had scanned the internet for tropical countries. We all agreed to go to the Indonesian island of Sumba, an island as large as Jamaica. Apparently, Indonesia boasts the most islands of any country. Unbelievably, over 17,000. My friends Michael, Bob, and I, Dave, had booked a holiday here for 2 weeks. We planned to do some snorkeling, exploring the coral reefs, and go on some boat trips to some of the Indonesian islands. For now, we were just chilling out on a sun lounger, drinking cold beers on the white sands of the Mbawana beach. The Sumba Island landscape is so rich in exotic plants and animal life. It also boasts unusual rock formations, including the Halfling Giant Stone. This is a coastal rock with a large gaping hole through it. In fact, me and the boys are just 30 feet away from it, to our left. Another unusual thing about Indonesia is the Indian Ocean. It changes color, varying from turquoise to ultramarine blue to a remarkable golden orange. Another thing this part of the world is known for is its earthquakes and tsunamis. Just a few minutes ago, we felt a heavy earthquake, but this was normal for Indonesia. We were glad we weren't in a city full of buildings. The tremor only lasted for about 20 seconds, and then it just fizzled out. Nothing to worry about. Feeling hot, I decided to go for a dip in the ocean. As I slowly walked in the soft, powdery white sand towards the ocean, I sensed a foreboding. And for some reason, I noticed it was taking me longer than usual at this time of day to arrive by the ocean. I also observed pools of seawater with seaweed, crabs, and other sea creatures, which weren't there before. And I'm sure by now I would have been hearing the waves come crashing onto the beach. But the ocean seems much further away. Then it dawned on me as I stared out into the distance. There it was, a few miles away, a massive wall of water. Difficult to measure, but I would say it must be at least 50 feet high, and it was heading towards the beach. It was a tsunami. I had heard in documentaries about how the ocean suddenly withdraws from a beach, heralding a tsunami. Is this my time to die? I thought. I turned and ran as fast as I could, back towards my friends, wearing my stupid flip-flops. As I ran, I observed dozens of people lying on their beach towels, oblivious to what was about to happen. I attempted to shout to warn them, but no words would come from my mouth. I was unable to speak because I was in the grip of fear. I managed to attract a couple's attention, but they just waved back at me and continued sunbathing. I picked up a heavy shell and threw it at them, and then pointed frantically towards the wall of death. I ran and ran, painfully slowly, getting closer towards my friends. Then my friends Michael and Bob saw me. I waved with both hands, frantically in desperation, to try and warn them as I pointed back to the ocean. They just seemed to ignore me. Finally, I reached Michael and Bob to pull them away. My larynx was constricted, paralyzed. I couldn't utter one word as I pointed back towards the ocean. A bloody, gigantic blue-green wave was only a couple of 100 yards away. By now, there were people screaming everywhere on the beach. We all started running. But where? Where do we go? Do you climb a tree? The waves are too high. Do we try to outrun it? No. It's too close behind us, and it must be moving at over 100 per now. Do we go left or right? Maybe the wave isn't as long as the beach. Very unlikely we could escape. It probably stretches as far as the length of the beach. We kept on running in front for our lives. As the adrenaline coursed through our veins, I spotted the cliff some 50 yards away. The tsunami was now so close behind us, you could hear its thunderous roar, like a wild beast after its prey. As we managed to reach the cliff, we climbed as rapidly as we could, managing some 30 feet when the wave crashed heavily into the cliff. It demolished the halfling giant stone and engulfed the surrounding area. The beach had been swallowed up, and the ocean continued to climb, moving closer towards us. This wild beast wasn't done until it caught up with us, all three of us, now exhausted, and like a gazelle, tired out with all its energy, spent. It was ready to drop and resign its fate to the beast chasing after it. I knew it was just only seconds away before the wave would claim me and my two friends. Suddenly, my heart stopped beating. To my horror, I was unable to lift my leg up to a ledge. It had got entangled in some plant's tendrils. Bob and Michael were too busy escaping to not notice me in trouble. The water was now up to my ankles as I frantically moved my foot to budge it free. The boat just wouldn't move. By now, I resigned to the fact that I was going to drown. As a 26-year-old, I was hoping for longer on this earth, and I just wish Bob and Michael escaped the wave. The water was now rising up to my neck. I closed my eyes and saw flash images of my mother, dad, sister, and brother. But wait a moment. Why hasn't the water covered me yet? I thought. The next thing I noticed was the water level was going down. It was now down to my feet, and I was able now to budge my foot free. The water was drawing slowly away, down to where the ocean and beach would normally meet. I looked up to the top of the cliff, and there, Looking down were my two buddies, Michael and Bob, waving to me, laughing. We all had a miracle escape. Sadly, many tourists didn't, and unexpected turbulence. I catch myself staring into the bright blue space of nothingness as I instinctively prepare another cup of tea. Balancing myself with a wide stance, the tea swoops up around the cup, teasing a spill, as I manage to place it down for the woman in 12D. Her legs stretch out in front of her as she makes the most of the emergency exit row. I move down the next few rows, filling plastic cups with water and stale coffee. My mind is once again invaded with their final words to me. You're just asking for it, now being another glorified air waitress. What are you doing tonight, Soph? Krista asks, rearranging her white blouse and smoothing down her skirt as I start packing down the drinks cart. Just the usual, I guess. Wow, look at you spicing things up, she mocks, adjusting the pink scarf around her neck with perfectly manicured hands. The usual means I will be performing the same overnight trip routine of gym, jog around the city, order in cheap hotel food, and read a book. I once defied my better judgment and went out with Krista, but ended up having a panic attack in the bathroom. One of the guys at the bar had slipped an arm around my waist, and the touch of a stranger set off every warning sign in my body. I opted to get the next round of margaritas after pulling myself together, and my head didn't hit the hotel pillow until 3 a.m. before my alarm woke me up an hour later. The sunlight at this altitude is unforgiving on hungover eyes. So who are you planning on staying up with all night? I tease. Okay, so you remember how I told you about Matt? I hardly remember any of her friends' names, but I nod anyway. So he's in town and has invited over a couple of his friends from work. We are going to start at Gin Palace. You remember that cute place, right? Hidden door in the alleyway, a few lanes down from the hotel, bookcases on the wall, house music, and those huge wine glasses I like, but with all different types of fancy gin and tonics. With my back to her, as I stow away the trolley, I realize she's waiting for my confirmation. Oh yeah, I remember. Nice place. Unbothered by my obvious lack of interest, she continues. Anyway, we are starting there, and then we're trying a new spot nearby. Apparently, one of his friends knows a club that is all completely glow in the dark, and she's cut off by the sound of the seatbelt light turning on as the captain announces we are likely to experience turbulence. Our cabin manager signals us to make our way down the aisle to ensure everyone follows the instructions, stopping to help a mother of two buckle up her sticky-looking toddlers. I think about Krista and how she is so open to new experiences and people. I can already imagine how her night is going to go. She will greet her friends with a big smile, and they'll cheers to having a fun night ahead. They'll share laughs, gossip, travel experiences, and talk like they've known each other for years. She has that effect on people, myself included. A commotion seems to be happening down the back of the plane, but it doesn't sound unusual. It's probably another disgruntled passenger complaining about being restrained by the seatbelt sign. Sounds like another safety rebellion happening. I joke quietly as I meet Krista in the center of the cabin. Actually, it's some fancy businessman with an accent complaining he was assigned the wrong seat. She rolls her eyes. I think he's European, but not the sexy, swoony kind. My stomach drops from the mention of an accented businessman. I swallow the wave of anxiety and force a sarcastic smile. If only more swoony European tourists came here for holidays, hey? Well, I wouldn't be hanging out with Matt and his friends tonight. I'll tell you that. She quips. We're about 30 minutes from touchdown and about to prepare the cabin for landing. It has been a relatively easy flight. Everyone in my section seems content, and the disgruntled man appears to have quietened down. Our cabin manager approaches Krista and I. She asks us to continue scanning the rows further down while she checks in with the captain. The turbulence is almost unnoticeable as I walk toward the back of the plane, but I sense a few nervous flyers and reassure them it's okay. We're not far from our destination. Then I see him sitting in the aisle seat, second row from the back. Cold gray eyes stare right through me. His mouth curls into a tight, malicious grin. A sudden drop of the aircraft challenges my balance, and I grab onto the nearest headrest to steady myself. Apologizing to no one in particular, I turn around in disbelief. Looking over my shoulder, I check if it's just a cruel trick of my subconscious. The seat is empty. Terror begins to smother my body, and I feel my hands tremble. His face has haunted me before. I've seen him in train stations, in busy restaurants, and on crowded flights like today. I'm almost used to his memory penetrating my reality. I remind myself again that it won't be real, and my mind is playing tricks. A few confused faces bring me back, and I straighten up before retreating to the front of the plane. Pulling the curtain across behind me, I start to feel my throat close up. It's not real. He's not here. I was just imagining it. My hand is gripping my chest, as if to stop my heart from bursting out of me. The lavatory door is opened, then locked on the other side of the thin material, separating the passengers, oblivious to my silent distress. Calming my breaths to a steadier rhythm, I squeeze my elbows onto the small bench space in front of me and let my head fall into my hands. I sense I am no longer alone. The uniform suits you. Now I'm hearing things. My insides turn, and I feel vomit fighting its way up. You don't have to be shy. I know it's been a while. His words are thick with Syra, and an accent I haven't heard in over a year. My nose twitches as his cologne inches closer, infiltrating my airways with unbearable familiarity. Definitely real. I've missed you. he says casually, as if we are two old friends. I desperately will for Krista, or another attendant to interrupt the reunion, but I remain compromised. He's dangerous. I know this. A plane full of bystanders and a small crew of staff. What is he willing to risk? Before I am able to answer my own thoughts, I feel a cool touch to my lower back, and I stiffen. The hairs on my neck snap out like razor blades, and my blood turns to ice. Why won't you look at me, my dear? As his hand slides further up my back, I'm screaming for help, but no sound is leaving my mouth. I'm launching my knee into his ribs, but my legs are stuck in place. I'm reaching for the intercom, but my hands are locked together on my chest. A jolt knocks us both off our balance, and I'm able to swing out of his touch, only to find us face to face. He's shorter than I remember. Silver flecks scatter the sides of his thinning hair. He's even uglier than I remember. Sir, you can't be back here. Krista drifts past the curtain and pauses in between us. Get back to your seat now, please. Of course, my dear. Pausing to smirk before he exits. Are you okay? You look like you've just seen a dead body. Krista's face is filled with concern. I bite my tongue before responding with, I wish I had, and let her know I'm fine, just a little shaken from the bumpy ride. Oh, really? I can hardly feel a thing. She moves over to the CID's system and sets the lavatory lights to red. We'll be descending soon. I straighten up my blouse and pat under my eyes to make sure any signs of horror are blurred into my smooth, professional mask. So did Mr. Fancy Pants think he'd find his seat up here? What? I can hardly hear her over the ringing in my eardrums. The European guy with the accent. Was he pestering you about his seat? Oh, I force an eye roll. He just came too far up looking for the bathroom. Well, you'd think he's a regular flyer with that attitude. Wouldn't he know where the lavatories are on these planes by now? I shrug and move past her, pretending to be busy conducting final checks on the food and beverage lockers. Krista announces the instructions for our descent across the cabin intercom, then turns to me. I'm just going to do a final rubbish collection and seat check. You want to just wait here? You look a little pale. Yeah, if you don't mind. Thanks. I move to open up the jump seat and begin to strap myself in. Damn, I mutter. I forgot to pull back the curtain. My hands are still shaky from the monster behind it. I begin to release the seat belt and stand up, taking a deep breath in before I reach up for a handful of fabric. But a hand grabs mine first. My weight is suddenly whipped out from underneath me, and I'm falling. A wicked crack erupts from behind my ears. I can feel something warm and wet trickle down my back. You thought you could run away, and I would forget about you? He's hovering over me. Did anyone hear me fall? Bringing his slimy fingers to my face, he strokes my cheek. Paralyzed. I'm trying to run in a bad dream, but my legs won't move faster than a walk. I'm being chased but my body has no sense of urgency. My mind is fighting to control a faulty vessel. His hand on my thigh makes me feel 18. "Oh my God!" I hear someone shriek. She fell. I was just checking on her. "Sophie, are you okay? What happened?" Krista bends down next to him, and I struggle to focus on which one of her swirling faces is real. I want to tell her to call for an emergency, but I can't seem to gather the words. She's an old friend. I can keep an eye on her if you get a first aid kit, he says, maintaining his cool composure next to me. Looking directly at him, she says, "Sir, you need to leave right now." Before she can say more, he thrusts his hand around her throat, and she is backed against the jump seat I was sitting on just a minute before. Awful screeches escape from her mouth as the veins grow by her temples. Her eyes search desperately. Watching my friend struggle for her life suddenly releases all the tightly wound ropes, holding me anchored to the floor. My hand reaches for the nearest cupboard, and a coffee pot extends from my arm and cracks down on his skull. I hit him again and again and again. "Soph," she croaks. "Sophie," Krista pleads, struggling to pull herself up from the ground. He is silent. Snapping back to my sense of self, I realize what I've done. The coffee pot drops from my hand, and a few wet drops slide off my face with it. "We need a doctor. Is anyone a doctor?" I yell, and hear the gasps echo down the aircraft. I was fresh out of high school and approaching my move-out date assigned by my parents when I started working. It was said to be the best restaurant in town. We had regular guests from all over the world who stayed in the hotel above. I didn't notice it at first, how I was always rostered on the section of mostly dinner for once. I received generous tips and learned about the different places they were all from. I enjoyed being praised for my efforts and attentiveness during the meal. The mostly male and outspoken staff generally left me alone, which suited me just fine. Though occasionally they'd comment on my appearance, telling me I needed more makeup if I had tired eyes or to put on a smile when I was clearing tables. The manager would joke about my tight ass and even grabbed it once to check the merchandise in front of the kitchen crew. Mr. Ackerman would arrive every night at 5 p.m. and order a glass of Syrah when he was in town. He'd sink into the couch at the bar and chat to the staff about life in Europe and his work in the oil business. I caught his eyes scanning my movements a few times, but we didn't speak until I was placing the napkin at his table and asking, "The usual again, sir? Make sure you take good care of him." I was frequently reminded by my manager, Colin, at the mandatory Christmas work party. We had dinner at a local pub, and Colin insisted we joined him for drinks after. Once a girl refused these nights out drinking, and she shortly had her hours cut and tips reduced until she had no choice but to quit. At the bar, we ran into some of our regulars. Mr. Ackerman seemed pleased to see us and eyed my black dress thoroughly. before delivering a sharp wink. "You should go chat with him. Keep up the good service, you know," my manager instructed with a pat on the ass, a glass of wine in hand. Courtesy of the man next to me, I sat there, struggling to answer the questions over the blasting music. I noticed how misplaced Mr. Ackerman was in his business casual attire, surrounded by partying patrons, 10 or 20 years his junior. "Sorry, I didn't hear you." I leaned into his side ever so slightly, struggling to keep any distance between us. His hand slid around my thigh in response. "I'll miss seeing you when I go back home. I'm sure you'll be fine." There were flowers in my locker the following week, and a note saying he looked forward to seeing me again. I tried talking to Colin about how it made me uncomfortable and thought it was unprofessional. "Sophie, this is professional. You're making connections and bringing in regular money. Keep up the excellent work." He checked in a month later and greeted me with 3 kisses on the cheek during a busy service. I wanted to run. I wanted to wash his touch off in a scorching shower. Instead, I smiled and continued serving overpriced glasses of champagne. Then came dinner. Colin called me before my shift, asking me to wear the same black dress from the Christmas party. "It's a formal kind of occasion tonight. We need to be on an extra level." Too afraid to disobey, I reluctantly arrived with black kitten heels to match, only to find I was to be served that night instead of serving. Promised my pay as usual, plus a tip from the foreign businessman, I followed orders. We sat at the candlelit table and discussed his travels and work in the private dining room. I actively avoided any conversation directed back to me. A package with a silver bow was placed between us when the plates were cleared. "For you, my dear." I carefully unwrapped it to find an expensive-looking perfume. "Only the best for my favorite girl." I don't know what to say. Forcing a smile, which ached my entire face. "Say nothing," he whispered, pulling my hand toward him before placing his lips on my skin. I resisted every urge to whip it away and smack his jaw, but I felt another pair of eyes on me. I glanced over to the room door to find my manager peering in, nodding in approval. Everyone knew. They all played a part in it. They helped print letters, deliver flowers, and even gave him my phone number. I was a pawn in their game. Mr. Ackerman must have offered more money than I could have imagined to the entire hotel staff. What other motive did they have? Or was it just a funny joke to them? What followed in the months after will stay with me for the rest of my life. I eventually cracked the morning after being requested to join Mr. Ackerman in his room for the night. I burst through the lobby and headed straight to the manager's office. I'd saved enough of my generous tips to book a flight to the other side of the world with an approved visa and an interview with an airline. I could finally escape. Colin laughed in disbelief of my resignation and career change. "You're just asking for it, now being another glorified air waitress. I dropped my apron on his desk and left without another word, going over the interaction in my head, making sure I didn't let it slip where the airline was based. The thud of the wheels touching down sends excruciating pain up my scalp as I continue applying pressure to my wound. Krista is sitting opposite me, with her face slowly returning to color, squeezing my hand. The emergency services are waiting at the gate, and I brace myself for the chaos about to erupt when we open the doors. I don't know what is going to happen. All I know is that my chest feels lighter, and I can breathe again. Lucien in the sky with diamonds. I really should have realized how vindictive Heather could be. What is that saying? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. When she found out I was seeing someone else and had traded her in for the other woman, a younger, prettier model, I just know that it was that very moment that she decided to exact her revenge. Unfortunately, Heather knows all of my secrets, including the biggest one of all, the fact that I am a world-renowned jewel thief who has recently completed one of the largest heists of the century, the theft of the Weatherby diamonds. Yes, I stole the necklace quite smoothly and easily from its display case at the art museum. I won't go into all of the meticulous details of how I managed to pull off the job. Let's just say that I know exactly what I'm doing, and I plan everything to the nth degree. All of my operations normally run like a well-oiled machine. That is, if no one interferes with my flow. But no, Heather just had to throw a monkey wrench into my work. I have to take ownership of it, however. It was entirely my own fault. I got careless for a brief moment and let my guard down. One night when I was feeling quite loose and relaxed, admittedly, I had also drunk too much wine. I had bragged to her of my prowess as a jewel thief. I probably also promised her the moon and stars at the time. Later, of course, when I dumped her, she used that information to cook my goose. I just know that she squealed on me and is responsible for my current predicament. I am now on an Air France flight, ready to depart to my native Paris, sweating like a pig because I'm afraid that I've been spotted by the cops. I just know that it's Heather who told. Why else would I be targeted this way? I have always been one to remain incognito, to fly under the radar, so to speak. Thus, the only logical conclusion I can arrive at is that she is the one who turned me in. Now the cops are surely out to get me. They are at this very moment rapidly approaching my seat. The Weatherby diamonds are set with precision into a choker valued at several $1 million. A choker that I am now wearing as I sit here prepared for takeoff. The necklace is currently living up to its name. It is choking me under a somewhat baggy black turtleneck. I despise turtlenecks, hate the way they press up against your neck. I opted for the loosest turtleneck possible, but it still presses up uncomfortably against my neck. The combination of the choker necklace and the turtleneck are almost more than I can bear. I wear the turtleneck under an equally baggy hoodie so no one can spot the necklace. Normally, I prefer my clothes to conform to my trim body like a glove. My sartorial senses are offended by this sloppy but choking attire. Who would ever wear a turtleneck with a hoodie? Unfortunately, I really have no choice. My outfit was not chosen for fashion. It does, however, allow me to sail through airport security without being stopped. The plan is, once I land in Paris, I will meet with a high-end jewelry broker who will give me top dollar for the jewels. I will be Hashon for life. That is, if I get away with it. I am afraid that the police are right now, at this very moment, making their way to the back of the plane where I am sitting. My seat on the jumbo jet, like my clothes, has also been carefully selected. I am in the second to last row and am seated on the aisle. I chose this seat so that I can make a quick exit to the restroom if needed and dump the jewels somewhere in the tiny closet of the restroom. We haven't taken off yet, and the flight attendant has just made the standard announcement about how we need to remain seated with our seat belts on and our trays in the upright position. Right after she says that, I spot the blue uniformed policeman making his way back towards me. With no time to waste, I disregard the stewardess's explicit directions and quickly shove my tray to the upright position. I then dash inside the tiny cubicle of a restroom before anyone can stop me. I shut the door firmly and pull the lever to lock the door. I really need to find a hiding spot for the necklace. I can't afford to be caught with it. I don't want to flush it down the toilet. I would be, in effect, flushing all of my hopes and dreams away. Instead, I need to stash the necklace somewhere so I can somehow later retrieve it. I quickly pull my hoodie off, followed by my turtleneck. With fumbling fingers, I fiddle with the silver clasp until the necklace falls off into my hands. Next, I carefully place the necklace in the paper towel dispenser behind the wad of folded paper towels. As I do this, my heart racing, I hear a sharp knock on the plasticine door that folds in like an accordion. "Monsieur?" the flight attendant inquires. She swiftly changes to English, but speaks with a strong French accent. "The plane is ready for takeoff. We need you to return to your seat now and put your seatbelt on, please," she says in a firm but polite voice. "Pardon, mademoiselle. I really need to use the facilities. I will be out directly." I run the water in the sink to make my act convincing and hurriedly wipe my hands with just one paper towel, taking care not to use too many so that the necklace remains hidden in the dispenser. I drop the used paper towel in the wastebasket and then don my turtleneck and hoodie once again. With 2 layers on in the tiny, airless washroom. I am now sweating more than ever. No matter, I tell myself, taking a deep breath in an effort to remain cool. At least, I am no longer choking. My throat feels slightly better, although the turtleneck still irritates me. I quickly push open the door and return to my aisle seat, where I dutifully pull my seatbelt across my lap and try to appear cool and collected. The policeman approaches me, his shiny badge glinting in the morning sun streaming through the small windows. "Mr. Martin?" He pronounces Martin in the American way, rather than the way I prefer it. Martine. My passport says I am Lucien Martin, although it is not my real name. My passport, which is fake, says I am a French citizen. When in America, however, I have a California driver's license that proclaims me to be Luke Martin. I have deliberately chosen a name that is very common, both in French and English. In every aspect of my life, I need to blend in and remain unmemorable. "Yes," I answer politely. "Please stand up. We need to do a pat search on you." "Pat search?" I repeat indignantly. "What are you looking for?" I am not at liberty to say, but with the Patriot Act, we have the right to search any and all air passengers at will. The cop says firmly. "Patriot Act? Do you think I am a terrorist?" I say this quite loudly. I hear a collective gasp from my fellow passengers, who are understandably alarmed, hearing nothing other than the word terrorist. "I sincerely hope not, sir," the cop said smoothly. "Just doing my job." I let out a tremendous sigh. "Go ahead. Do your job. Pat away." The cop uses bladed hands to do a thorough pat search, running his hands smoothly up and down my sides. He searches my pant pockets and instructs me to remove my hoodie. I do so, laughing inside. I didn't want to wear the hoodie anyways. After several long minutes, the cop finally stops his fruitless search, finding nothing. "Okay, sir," he says finally. "You have been cleared." He walks to the front of the plane, where he presumably has to talk to the captain. "This plane is cleared for takeoff," he announces to the male attendant standing at the front of the plane. As he does that, I glance towards the back of the plane to see the reaction from the other flight attendant, the lady who had tried to shoo me out of the washroom. To my surprise, she quickly enters the washroom and pulls the door firmly shut behind her. My heart sinks. My plan had been to quickly visit the head once again and retrieve the jewels before anyone else entered. I haven't seen anyone else, apart from the stewardess, use the restroom. I have been carefully watching, in between dealing with the nosy policeman. Now, I pray it isn't too late. Several long moments pass, and the flight attendant finally exits the restroom. I quickly unbuckle my seatbelt and hurry back there. I frantically pull the door shut behind me and shove my hand into the narrow slot of the paper towel dispenser. I feel around with my fingers, my heart sinking. The necklace is gone. With shaking hands and fury coursing through my veins, I return to my seat. As I do so, I catch sight of the petite, blonde flight attendant who had entered the washroom before me. She gives me a Mona Lisa smile and tells me once again that I need to buckle my seatbelt and prepare for takeoff. I smile back and raise my eyebrows at her flirtatiously. "Certainly, mademoiselle. I'll buckle up right away. I can hardly wait to get to Paris." "But of course," she responds in her charming French accent. "Paris is the city of light." I vow to myself that once I reach Paris, I will tail the flight attendant and somehow try to overpower her, either by brute force or with my relentless charm. A gentleman jewel thief's job is never done, I tell myself. I need to retrieve the diamonds at all costs. They are my ticket to the good life. The plane's engine roars as if feels my strong determination. The giant silver bird speeds down the runway and triumphantly takes to the sky. At last, the blonde flight attendant moves down the plane's narrow aisle. She turns her head back towards me at the last moment and smiles mischievously. Mona Lisa no longer. "I hope you enjoy your flight, monsieur. Bon voyage." The sea witch, clouds of ink and iron pressed against a leaden ocean. He found her waist deep in the salty waters, fingers trailing in swirling sea foam, gaze cast to the storm promised heavy on the horizon. Winds tasting of seaweed and salt brine danced in her hair, tangling through long obsidian strands and tossing them into thickening air. From the dunes he called to her, "Fair one." His hail drifted, swallowed by crashing surf. "I seek the sea witch." Only winds stirred in answer. Slowly, her head turned ever slightly to gaze over her shoulder. From great distance, and obscured beneath wild strands of hair, her dark eyes locked to his with piercing intensity that struck his core like lightning. With a hum that rippled across the waves, she spoke. A harrowing voice of 1,000 voices burrowed deep in his mind with a cold whisper of soft honey. "Is this what they call me these days?" Her lips curled, not to a smile, but something knowing, something old. "I've heard tales of your great power," he cried, stepping closer to the waves. "Please, I seek your help." She laughed darkly from the water. "Great power." She tasted the words, rolling them over her tongue like foam dissolving on the shore. Thunder rumbled on the horizon. In an instant, she was before him, her face inches from his. She floated above a boiling sea, robes billowing over tumultuous waves that crashed to the shore with surging hunger. Energy crackled in the air, charged with a deep pulse that rivaled the burning winds. Her hair spiraled in silken waves before her, caressing his face. and her eyes, deep and endless, burned with intensity that could sink the largest of ships. And did they call it great? She whispered, her voice of 1,000 voices quaking earth and thrumming his bones. When they led me to the pyre, the wind howled, tearing at his clothes, the salt stinging his eyes. Did they call it great? She continued with increasing intensity. When they bound my wrists, when they fed me to the flames, he cowered before her as the sea swelled with hunger. I surely think not. She rose higher, straightening her form, bare feet brushing against churning waves. And yet, still, here they slither to me, mewling for party tricks. She looked down upon him with her chin raised. Tell me then, boy, she spat, laced with mockery. What is it that you seek? Gold? Fame? Power, perhaps? She tilted her head. A place among kings? She laughed, and sea spray pelted his skin. With a forearm, he shielded his face and cried, Please, I know not of your past, wise one. The winds raged around him. I seek a cure. My love is plagued with an illness that no medicine or healer can rid. I cannot bear to live without her. The winds slowed, the waters calmed, and slowly the sea witch descended. Her feet sunk in swirling sands beneath the surface, her dark hair to her sides. She eyed him thoughtfully, weighing his words. Cannot live without her, she echoed. Just one voice falling from her lips, in stark contrast to the thousands before. Quiet waves lapped around her calves. And this woman, she is your great love. He ignored hairs pricking on his neck as her gaze bore into him. She is everything to me. She studied him, robes billowing in soft winds. Yes, she said quietly. This I will do. Oh, thank you, he cried, falling to his knees in the water before her. She narrowed her eyes, looking down upon him. But there is always a price. Oh, yes, of course, he stammered, scrambling in his pockets. I have money. Her voice of 1,000 voices cracked like thunder. I do not deal in coins, foolish boy. The waves stirred hungrily around her feet before calming. Then, just one voice, brimming with disdain. Your debt lies with the universe. He stood up, trembling. He lifted his head to meet her fearsome gaze. For her, I will pay any price. Her lips twisted to a smile, sharp as glass. Such conviction, she murmured, almost to herself. How valiant. The softest chuckle emanated from her, like thunder rumbling on the horizon. She stepped forward, running a cold finger down his cheek. Very well then, the deal is struck. Her eyes flicked to his. A life for a life. His breath caught in his throat. With one swift movement, her hand shot to grip the back of his neck, fingers digging into his flesh as she pulled him close. The water swelled around them, ravenous and eager. She laughed, pulling him under and out to sea as he sank deeper, deeper. He thought only of his love. He thought of her laughter, bright and warm, ringing across wildflower meadows around their cottage. He thought of her smile, crooked and beautiful, and the soft hole it hitched in his chest each time she bore it. He thought of the night he fell for her, watching her dance, weaving and spinning between other party-goers beneath the hanging wisteria. She'd smiled at him, waving to come join her. He'd held up his hands, sticking to the edges. He wasn't much for dancing. If he could go back, if he could only go back, he'd join her in a heartbeat. Later, that same night, she'd led him under moonlight, dragging him by the hand through the wood to her favorite place. "Come on," she'd whispered, her laughter echoing in the night. "I have to show you something." She brought him to a hidden gazebo on the lily pond, where she'd kissed him, stolen and bold. The sea kissed him now, stealing air from his lungs as she had. He thrashed against its unwelcome embrace as it ran icy fingers deep into his chest. He thought of her illness, how quickly she'd waned, the doctor's cold looks of detachment that made his blood boil, how they'd came and went, pricking her and bleeding her with leeches, giving all manner of vile treatments, until one day, one of them pulled him aside. "She's too far gone for further treatment," he'd said solemnly. It would be best to sort affairs. His world had shattered then. Nothing mattered but her. In blind desperation for something, anything to keep her alive, he'd ignored the warnings that heeded the whispers and sought the spell weaver, the sea witch. As she pulled him into the depths, he could only hope that it was worth it. In flight, meal. Leo was not a fan of flying. Not like this. Sitting quietly with strangers in an enclosed space, like he was back in the classroom. That was one of his ideas of hell. He had many ideas of hell, and very few of heaven. He made sure her was one of the first passengers on the plane. He took his seat with no fuss and no nonsense, and then did his best to weather the storm of humanity around him. He tried the breathing technique his therapist had taught him, and he also tried zoning out. Neither worked. A voice in his head was screaming at him to leave. Anything was better than this. Screw the deal. Just get off the plane and go home. Maybe Jimmy was right. They should buy the Vibe Bar, change its name to something far cooler, and live the simple life. Leo's bar. Thoughts of the bar helped calm him for a little while, but then he realized that his ambition was taking the concept to places that were far from simple. Leo sighed. Jimmy would make that bar work. He really would. But then Leo would come along, interfere, and fuck it up. And the worst of it was that Jimmy would smile sweetly and let him ruin everything. Sometimes Leo wondered whether he wasn't wired right, that maybe he'd been dropped on his head as a baby, or his mother had had a secret drug habit. Leo was never settled or content. Nothing was ever good enough. Or if it seemed like it was, it soon turned into the brown stuff and stunk to high heaven, meaning Leo had to move onto pastures new before the shit stuck to him, and he was the one stinking the place up. Somehow, he lost himself somewhere in his thoughts and self-absorption, thankful of the respite. Barely taking in the safety briefing, he came to himself as the plane accelerated down the runway, and he was pressed down into his seat as they traveled skyward. He enjoyed this bit, but it also terrified him. There was nothing natural about being propelled into the sky. He tried not to consider the landing. It was the landing that could kill you. Hit the ground hard enough, and it was all over. He blew out a breath and closed his eyes. He kept them closed as he mulled the deal. This was the big time. Once he'd done this deal, he'd be a different animal, and the vibe bar would be far beneath him. He was a player now. Things were on the change, and people better take note. They would have to take note. He'd make sure of it. "Drink, sir?" The question fazed him, but he quickly returned to himself, ordering a bourbon, then making it a double. As he poured his drink into the crappy plastic cup, he tuned into the interaction between the air hostess and the passenger sat next to him. The voice was what caught his attention. There was no mistaking the owner of that voice. If Leo were to turn and gawp at the woman next to him, he knew that he would find her attractive. Maybe too attractive. Leo's measure of too attractive was not misogynistic. He applied the same rule to man and beast alike. Beautiful people could be really up themselves and manage to be a pain in the ass at the same time. Leo had experienced this and had no time for it. Mostly, he had no time for it. There was always room for exceptions, and she turned out to be yet another of the exceptions. "Hey," he said as he turned to greet her. "I'm Leo." She smiled and nodded. "I'm Grace. Nice name," he told her. And for once, he thought he might mean it. There followed a silence that could have been awkward, but instead was filled with anticipation, or at least was as far as Leo was concerned. "I don't usually," he began, but trailed off as both the words and the sentiment felt off-kilter. "I bet that's what you say to all the girls you sit next to on a plane," she said, with a hint of humor in her voice. That voice, there was something cathartic about it. Not only that, her very presence was doing something to him. Some things. He was regressing. A young boy around the babysitter. A pretender to a throne he never thought he would ever sit on. His body was fizzing, and his brain was spinning so that he couldn't think straight. "So, Leo," she said, "what is it that you do?" That last word was heavy with meaning, but he could not discern it. "I'm a businessman," he replied. "The problem with the dog-eat-dog world of business is you have to piss a few people to get anywhere. Am I right?" She was smiling. He nodded. "Seemed impossible not to. Trick is not to piss the wrong people off," she said in a quieter tone. Leo paused for a moment, his face a question. It were almost as though she knew something that he didn't. But how could she? She was just a stranger on a plane, and this was small talk to pass the time as they lingered in the limbo of this uncomfortable travel. Then she casually placed her hand on his thigh, and everything took a sharp right turn. "I find flying so dull." Now she was barely whispering. "Don't you?" "Not so much so now," Leo replied. Grace grinned at him. There was something overtly sexy about that grin. It sent a thrill up Leo's spine. The sensation was heightened as Grace's hand stroked higher up his thigh, and he found himself wanting more, wanting so much more. "Your business?" she asked, her voice stroking the back of his neck in time with her hand on his thigh. "Is it dangerous?" "Very." His own voice felt thick and stilted. He was inexplicably drowsy, but his senses felt heightened. Her touch was electrifying him. "I walk on the wild side." He wasn't sure why he'd told her that. Wild side? They weren't even his own worlds. "I knew it!" she said excitedly, her hand going all the way up his inner thigh and resting exactly where he had hoped it might. "You're a very naughty man, aren't you?" Naughty? Was he? If anyone else had asked him this question, he'd have put them in their place. But with her, it was different. It was like she was royalty, a bona fide princess, the sort you couldn't refuse. And he wasn't going to refuse her when she was working magic on him with that hand of hers. Couldn't react badly with where her hand was right now. "I have been known to be naughty." He struggled to say the words as an involuntary gasp threatened to intermingle with them. "In that case, I think you better ask for a blanket." Grace gave him a playful squeeze. She was leaning in towards Leo now. He felt her breath on his earlobe and neck. "Sure," he said, and duly obliged. "That's better," purred Grace as she spread the blanket over Leo. The armrest was up and out of the way now. "This business of yours, it's criminal, isn't it?" "Can be," Leo replied. as Grace moved closer to him and nuzzled his neck, sending waves of pleasure through him. The anticipation was building, and he was reeling from this turn of events. He was no longer enduring a painful flight. He was enjoying a mile-high tryst. "Oh, look, you're bleeding." Her words took too long to sink in. He responded instead to her hand, leaving him and taking his wrist instead. There was a smear of blood, but he hadn't noticed any pain or act that could have caused the slight wound. "Here, let me." He watched as she lapped at the bloodied skin on his wrist. However slow he'd been with what she'd been saying, his body responded quickly and fully to this. She was sending waves of pleasure through him, and his imagination was going to the best of places, even before she began kissing and then sucking at his flesh. He'd never known pleasure like it, never realized how sensitive his wrists were. They sat like that for a while, Grace lapping and kissing him as he looked on, Leo doing his best to stifle his moans and hold himself back. The way he was responding to her, it was like his first time, but he had decades of experience to bring to the party. Something so simple as kissing his wrist. Who knew? And if she could have this effect on him as she did this, what further pleasures awaited? He was disappointed when she stopped, resisting the urge to ask her not to cease, putting a hold on begging her for more. Instead, he went for small talk to disguise his blatant need for her. "What do you do, Grace?" he asked, as she slipped her arm around him and drew closer to him. Her hand was wrapped around him now. It felt so good. He barely registered her having undone his belt and trousers, losing his touch, drowning out the dissenting thoughts, going with it. He'd seen plenty of action before today, but not like this, not with a woman like Grace. And she was doing things to him that he didn't know were possible. He wanted her more than any woman he'd ever met, wanted to give himself over to the pleasure he knew she could so readily bestow. Her voice, her presence, it had spoken of this, drawn him in. Now she was fulfilling the promise that was made as soon as they'd taken their seats on this flight. A chance encounter that was blowing his mind to pieces as she stroked him and pleasured him. She answered his question with that voice of hers. "I deal with the naughty boys. I eliminate risks," she breathed into his ear. "And you've been a very naughty boy. Fran Johnstone is not happy with you going behind his back with this deal of yours." His eyes widened in shock, but he barely had time to let the words sink in before her teeth sank into his neck. His back arched, and he wanted to protest, to struggle, but it was already too late for that. Too late for Leo. Grace took her time and enjoyed her in-flight while these business trips were very lucrative for an assassin with her skills and proclivities. Less so for loose cannons like Leo. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.